Number 10. Project Pegasus and the Chrononauts. While that may sound like a sweet alt-rock band, Project Pegasus didn't have anything to do with music, but with moving through time. Seattle attorney Andrew Basiago has been making claims since 2004 that when he was younger, starting at the age of 7, he participated in the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, Project Pegasus, focusing on teleportation and time travel. He and a few others were chosen at a young age because, allegedly, children could adapt well to the strains of moving between past, present, and future. Along with his fellow Chrononauts, love the name, he adventured throughout time to places like the Gettysburg Address in 1863 and to Ford's Theater to witness the assassination of President Lincoln, quote, 5 or 6 times. I don't know why he was so obsessed with Lincoln. He was allegedly even captured in a photograph. He claims that he witnessed 8 different time travel technologies throughout the course of the project, and that most were based on engineering specs and sketches by Nikola Tesla. And if one person was to come up with teleportation or time travel, I think it would be Tesla himself. Pure genius, that one. Andrew even met himself a few times in the past, and surprisingly didn't cause a paradox. His claims are supported by others who say that the Defense Department has had time travel capabilities for over 40 years, but has kept it secret. Andrew Basiago also ran for president in 2016, but we all know how that turned out. Maybe he should have used time travel to change the outcome. Number 9. Vrillin Ashtar Radio Incident. On Saturday, November 26, 1977, in the southern United Kingdom, a mysterious voice interrupted a news broadcast and gave strange commands and predictions of the future. Accompanied by unsettling pulsing noises and echoes, the electronic-sounding voice claimed to be Vrillin, a representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command. Aliens or future beings sent to deliver a warning message that humans must denounce and remove all of their weapons of evil in order for an age of peace and prosperity to come to fruition, the age of Aquarius. If humans do not comply and turn from their evil ways, humanity will fall. Here's a little clip.
This is the voice of Allah, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you.
Though the message is foreboding and super creepy, this messenger from the future actually makes some good points and gives some decent advice, like have no fear, seek only to know yourselves and live in harmony with the ways of your planet Earth. Seems like they were listening to the hippies at the time, and they had the right idea. After taking control of the station, they bid farewell and said they would leave our plane of existence, leaving us with their final words, "May you be blessed by the supreme love and truth of the cosmos." Aww. Thanks, Vrillin. Number 8. Guardian Angel. In 2019, a video surfaced of a shop owner in Turkey tending to some of his merchandise. Very normal, nothing to see here, until a man calmly walks up behind him and casually taps him on the shoulder as he walks by, causing the shop owner to turn around. But not a moment later, a gate from a large truck driving by swings open, nearly killing him. And if it wasn't for this mystery man's actions, the shop owner would surely be dead. The truck driver returned to apologize for what had happened, but the mysterious stranger was nowhere to be found. Some commenters believe that this man had come back from the future to save lives, perhaps not just the shopkeepers. That's the only one that we caught on camera. Others have noticed that the two men look similar, even their outfits aren't far off, implying that maybe it's the same man, or their son somehow come back from the future. Though it looks like it was filmed on a potato, so who can be sure. Number 7. Rudolph Fentz. The story of Rudolph Fentz is one that has been hotly debated amongst the time travel investigation community. In 1951, people in Times Square in New York City noticed a man suddenly appear wearing 19th century clothing. He appeared to be disoriented and confused, and after running into an intersection in a daze, he was hit by a car and fatally injured. When his body was inspected, they found strange items in his possession that appeared to have come from another time. A copper token for a beer worth 5 cents bearing the name of a saloon which was unknown even to older residents of the area, a bill for the care of a horse and the washing of a carriage made by a stable that was not listed in any address book, old banknotes, business cards with his name and address, as well as a letter sent to him postmarked in 1876. These items in his attire have led people to believe that Rudolph was a man from the past, probably from 1876, who unfortunately slipped through time to a place that he didn't or couldn't comprehend, and his confusion ultimately killed him. Tragic story, really. Number 6. Bob White. In 2003, Dave Hill, along with countless others, received an email from Bob White. Normally, a spam email would just get ignored by Dave, but this one was too strange to pass up. The email explained that he needed help from a time traveler, or any alien disguised as human, because his life had been severely tampered with, and he needed, quote, temporal reversion to correct it. He resorted to the internet to find help.
You ever come across anything like time travel?
He asked the people receiving the message for strange mechanical parts that didn't exist, like an AMD dimensional warp generator module containing the GRC79 induction motor, or an Acme 5X24 series time transducing capacitor with built-in temporal displacement. I don't even think a Time Lord could help him find these ridiculous sounding parts. But Dave Hill decided to have some fun and responded to his message saying that he could get what he needed. And he even sent an old hard drive motor to Bob, claiming that it was a warp generator, which Bob gratefully accepted, believing it was the part he needed.
It's a time machine, Napoleon. You bought it online.
You're right.
It works, Napoleon. You don't even know.
It was later revealed that Bob White was a man named Robbie Tadino, a 22-year-old from Massachusetts who admitted to sending over 100 million messages for help out into cyberspace, and truly believed, and still does believe, that he was affected by time travel and needs to make a machine to fix it. The story he describes and the machine he seems intent on building is so specific that many people are convinced he has met time travelers or aliens and is really trying to recreate their technology with human things that just don't exist yet. Let's just hope he gets it all sorted out. Number 5. The Philadelphia Experiment and MONTAUK Project. I've talked about these before in a previous video, but they require another mention here as there are so many accounts of what happened that it's overwhelming. Allegedly, there was a secret military operation being performed in 1943 at the shipyard aboard the USS Eldridge. The experiment involved cloaking, not time travel, strangely enough, but when they attempted to conceal the ship with the technology they developed, the ship did indeed disappear, but that was because it was moved 10 minutes into the past, which reportedly caused some of the crew to go mad. And later, another secret military operation called the MONTAUK Project was tasked with creating gates for time travel, using psychic links from children who are much more attuned to these kinds of things apparently, and can open their minds more, so the witnesses claim. One of these many gates that were opened apparently led back to the USS Eldridge during the 10 minutes of time dilation, but these two experiments are linked by one person who has since shared their experience. Number 4. Al Bielek. Al Bielek was a Navy officer aboard the USS Eldridge during the Philadelphia experiment, also known as Project Rainbow. And when the time jump occurred, he wasn't sent 10 minutes into the past. He claims that he was sent forward to the year 2137. When he was rescued from the water, he was taken to a futuristic hospital where he was treated for radiation sickness they say he developed from the time jump. He described major differences in the world, the coastlines being swallowed by the oceans, worldwide government collapse followed by the rise of a system that allowed everyone to get what they need when they needed it, for free, by abolishing the concept of money. He was eventually sent back and continued to live his life, burdened by what he had learned, with few believing him, until he was later recruited by the MONTAUK Project as their program director for the psychics involved with creating the time tunnels, which he used to investigate as far back as 100,000 BC and as far forward as the year 6037. Of course, he maintains that the government has done everything in their power to stop him from revealing all of this, disavowing him once he went public with his stories. Do you believe his story? Let me know in the comments. Number 3. Time traveling Trump. Now, I don't like talking about this former first family very much unless it has to do with all the current investigations, but some of these coincidences are just a little too eerie, though I do believe that they are just that. This conspiracy theory came from a discovery on the Library of Congress website, where readers found books from the 1890s, one called Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, and another called 1900, or The Last President. The first is about a young man named Baron Trump, who discovers portals for time travel, and at one point in the book he was actually guided by a man named Dawn. In the second book, an odd choice for president wins the election and has someone with the last name Pence in their cabinet. Even the address where New York's Trump Tower now stands was mentioned. Personally, I believe that the former president's son Barron was named after the character in the book, not the other way around, but the connections found are certainly interesting. Number 2. Mike Markham. In early 1995, 21-year-old Mike Madman Markham attempted to build a time machine on his front porch. Of course, it didn't work, but that didn't deter him, and he kept working towards his goal. He later stole the expensive parts that he needed and caused a bit of trouble doing so. Then, after he got out of jail, he went on a radio program called Coast to Coast AM to talk about the machine he was building, saying that he was nearly finished and would be testing it soon, even giving out his phone number so that anyone with knowledge on the subject could help him out. Then he disappeared off the face of the earth. No one could find him for months, after which he said he was going to travel back in time only with his cell phone, and later that same week an old story was dug up from the 1930s of a man who was found dead on a beach in California, encapsulated in some sort of metal tube with a strange device, a description of which matches that of a cell phone from the 1990s. Could that be the eventual fate of Mike? And finally, our number 1, under the sink. In 2006, a Swedish man by the name of Håkan Nordqvist was fixing a leak from a cracked pipe under his sink when he noticed something strange, a bright light that seemed to beckon him in a way. He crawled in and suddenly appeared somewhere completely different, but he wasn't alone. He claims that he met someone there, or rather, he met himself. He claimed that he ran into himself, but a future version, perhaps around 70 years old. And since he knew no one would believe him, he pulled out his cell phone and filmed the meeting. The two men do look remarkably similar, but the clincher for this whole story is when they rolled up their sleeves and revealed that they both have the exact same tattoo, in the exact same place. We all know that one of the main rules of time travel is to never interact with yourself, so we're lucky he didn't cause a paradox and rip a hole in time and space.
And at number 10 we have Matt Groening. This is a classic one. Everyone thinks that the creator of The Simpsons might be a time traveler. Wait, what? Why would some people think that the creator of a show would possess some sort of superpower? Well, unless you've been living under a log, you would know that The Simpsons have been able to predict the future several times. Everything from three-eyed fish being discovered to the coronavirus to Donald Trump becoming president. It would seem like the show has a strange knack for looking into the future. They even got the ending of Game of Thrones figured out. Now, what this is probably just like dumb luck or just freaky coincidences, because The Simpsons has been on for so long and is constantly doing social commentary, so it would only be a matter of time before they figured things out. But what if he did actually come from the future and that is how he gets inspiration for his show? Or he has a link to the future that is telling him what might happen so he can work it into the show. Either way, I mean, you gotta admit, those coincidences are pretty freaky.
Coming in at number 9, we have Wim Hof. You might not know this guy, but you definitely should. Some of you might know him as his nickname, the Iceman. But Wim Hof is the man who unlocked some special ability within all of us. Through breathing exercises and some cold therapy, he has been able to take on temperatures that would kill most people in seconds. He also has been able to fight off harmful infections and keep any sort of sickness at bay. Not only that, but he has taught these techniques to people all over the world. He has consistently claimed that he isn't special and that anyone can do this, but here's the thing. This apparently is a technique that has been used for thousands of years. It was just forgotten to our time and people. So did Wim Hof just rediscover something that was lost? Or did he travel from the past to the future to make sure that we never lost this amazing skill that he has been doing forever because he is a Time Lord?
I'm gonna go with the Time Lord option. And at number 8 we have Jennifer Aniston. Here's one that's not like she has some sort of special knowledge, but let's just get real for a second. If you take a picture of Jennifer Aniston when she's 19 and a picture of her when she's 50, it looks pretty much the same. Either this lady is a Time Lord that has the ability to stop her cells from aging because she can bend space and time around herself and become forever young, or she has more money than God and she's spending it on keeping her body young forever. Honestly, it's for sure the second one, because she was on one of the most successful sitcoms of all time and then became one of the biggest stars in the whole world, so she for sure has the money to spend on staying fit and young. Also, not worrying about money is great for your stress, which would help you not look old. But it's more fun to speculate that she's come from the future or past or both, I guess.
Coming in at number 7, we have Taylor Swift. People love to gossip about Miss Swift. I mean, she kind of deserves it because it seems like she's a massive liar and is super snaky when no one's looking, but at the same time, we shouldn't give that much attention to pop stars because there are way more important things to pay attention to. But one of the things that people got on Miss Swift about was the speculation that she was a time traveler. A lot of people think that she's actually Xena Lavey, who was a somewhat famous Satanist from the past who looks just like Taylor Swift. People say that she wasn't getting much traction as a Satanist back in the 80s, so she found a way to travel through time, make herself look younger, and then become a massive celebrity with her Time Lord abilities, and now with her position of power, she's going to take over the world with Satanism.
Alright, sliding into number 6 here, we have Will Smith. Back on the point about someone looking young forever, we have Will Smith, who has been gliding through life as one of the most successful stars who's ever lived, but at the same time, it's been a hot minute since this guy's had a hit movie. How can you be rich and famous for so long without making a solid movie in over a decade? Well, that could be because he has been able to work his way through Hollywood and into the ranks of the elite by becoming a Time Lord and selling knowledge of the future. This has to be the answer, obviously. It's not because he's a crazy hard worker and is apparently one of the nicest people you'll ever meet and is extremely supportive of the people around him and is actually a good actor even though not all of his movies are bangers. No way, the answer has to be Time Lord, and it is for sure that he is confirmed Illuminati.
Coming in number 5, we have David Blaine. There is no way that you are standing on top of a pole for 3 days, getting locked in ice, and holding your breath until you break the breath hold record, and okay, the balloon thing was kinda lame, but all those other things were way cooler. But can we say that he has some ability to master his body and push himself to levels that no one has ever seen before? That he has gone out of his way to master sleight of hand and become one of the best magicians of all time? Or could we say that this dude is for sure a Time Lord who has been using his abilities to capture the minds of people around him and make us all think that he's some sort of weird dude? No way, man. The reason that he seems so strange is because he's from the year 3000 and he now has a watch that lets him blast back in time and pull off a bunch of crazy stunts. I'm just saying that when this dude dies, you're gonna want to check through all his pockets because he might have a device that can help you blast through time.
At number 4 on this list, we have Joe Exotic. Just looking at the way this guy's dressing and his haircut, I would have to say that he's from a different time. Like, for sure. I mean, he is from Kansas. I've never been there, so is that just what everyone looks like in Kansas? I don't know. Let me know in the comments if that's the truth. It's probably not. Also, where is this dude getting all these tigers from, man? I would like to think that he's breeding them and selling them, but here's more than a logical idea. Wormhole. This guy has been pulling tigers from the past to the future through a wormhole, and he's actually doing this so tigers never go extinct, which is a very noble task, but he should change his wardrobe because it is too easy for people to tell that he is a time traveler when he looks like that. I don't think we have an Illuminati confirmation on him yet, but I am working on it. I've got all my best men on this case.
Coming in at number 3, we have Bruce Lee. I mean, the man came out of nowhere. He was able to master kung fu and other martial arts. He showed the world how to do crazy things with your body and be a human weapon. His hands were registered as lethal weapons. He has one of the most badass quotes of all time. He became one of the biggest movie stars of all time. He changed a decade, was one of the healthiest people who ever lived, and then just died out of nowhere from taking some sort of weird medication. I mean, there is a ton of speculation as to what happened to Bruce Lee. We could spend hours just going through all the conspiracy theories, but how about this one? This dude was a Time Lord who just came back in time to shake things up, become famous, be cool, and then bounced out of nowhere to a different timeline where he could be a legend again.
At number 2 on our list, I feel like I clap every time. Vladimir Putin. I mean, out of everyone on this list so far, this is probably the least shocking. As a kid, he apparently went to the KGB office and told them that he wanted to join, and they told him that no one does this, please leave. And then he spent his life becoming qualified until they accepted him, and then he became the supreme overlord of Russia. So yeah, this dude seems like he knows a thing or two about the future. Also, there's this picture. Is it a coincidence that all of the people lined up who look like Putin are in the army? I don't think so. This dude has been a Time Lord fighting in wars for centuries. Okay.
And coming into the number 1 spot, we have Zendaya and Halle Berry. Time Lord works, man. They are in the present timeline so that you can't figure out who they are. But just look at a side-by-side picture of these two. Zendaya looks like she could be Halle Berry's daughter, and maybe there is a relation, but I'm gonna put on my speculation hat and we're going to say that they're the exact same person. One famous light-skinned black woman moves out of Hollywood and then the next one moves in. They are in a time loop as we speak, crossing over the younger version so we never suspect anything when Halle Berry passes, but she already sent the younger version of herself into the past so she never has to die, and when the older version dies, all of her thoughts will be transferred into the younger version. I mean, it's right in front of you guys. How can you not see this?
Number 10. John Titor. In November of 2000, there was a huge uptick in activity on the Time Travel Institute forums, which is still a website with some interesting reading material. In between all of the crackpot theories was a group of posts that seemed a bit too detailed to ignore. A man named John Titor was posting, and he claimed to be from the year 2036 and was sent back in time by his government to the year 1975 to retrieve an old IBM computer. They needed it for some debugging back in his home time. But as a little time vacation, he decided to stop off in the year 2000 for some fun. The posts on the forum detailed the technology he used to travel, along with future events like a US Civil War in 2012 and a Third World War in 2015. Obviously none of this happened, but his posts were so convincing and full of things that could have been possible or could have worked in theory that it may have been true. but just by revealing the information, he changed the timeline. We can't disprove any of the things he said, and no one has heard from him since. Number 9. Hipster Time Traveler. In 1941, the South Fork Bridge was reopened in Goldbridge, BC, Canada. This photo was snapped to commemorate the event, and everyone out there seems to be dressed in their Sunday best, and no one paid any mind to it at all. But when it was uploaded to be part of the Virtual Museum of Canada, users found something odd, and it spread across the net like wildfire. In the back row of people, there's a man dressed in what one may now call hipster attire. Sunnies and a graphic tee under a textured cardigan, and he even has the I couldn't care less hairstyle to go along with it. Some think he's from the future and inadvertently walked into the frame of this shot, and others think he's just some guy from the 40s who didn't get the dress code memo. Number 8. Future photograph. A man named Edward claimed that in 2004, while living in LA and working in a lab, he was given the opportunity of a lifetime to be sent forward in time 3,000 years and come back with evidence to prove it. A massive achievement for the human species. He claimed in a 2018 interview that when he was sent forward, he was still in Los Angeles, but something was different. He was on a large wooden platform, and everything, all of the buildings and everything around him was made of wood, and water stretched out as far as the eye could see. When he looked down, he saw the remnants of LA under the water. He claimed that climate change had destroyed the planet and water levels had risen to devour the entire city, and he has a photograph to prove it. I'm not sure if I believe that the photograph is real, but I think that the idea of LA being underwater due to climate change is totally plausible and very frightening. Number 7. Back to the 40s. In 1988, Strange Magazine 2 published the account of a man named LC who claimed that back in the summer of '69, he and his business partner were driving through Louisiana, and out of nowhere the weather changed completely. Then ahead of them appeared an old car, a 40s turtleback, going extremely slow. The car had an orange license plate with 1940 written on it, and what is even stranger is that antique cars like that weren't allowed on the road unless it was for a ceremonial parade. It was moving so slow that they thought something may be wrong, so they pulled up beside it and saw that the driver and her child were wearing clothing from the 40s as well. Once they gestured for her to pull over, the car vanished, right in front of their eyes. Another eyewitness also corroborated the story. Now the question is, who was the time traveler, LC or the woman in the car? Number 6. Marie Antoinette. In 1901, 2 professors from St. Hugh's College in Oxford traveled to the Palace of Versailles, where one of the last French royals, Marie Antoinette, lived until she was executed in 1793. They were walking the grounds when the two of them both reported seeing many people, including Antoinette herself, in 1780s attire walking the grounds. The area they were in was a small retreat built in the garden by Louis XVI for Marie as a gift, so there is a reason to expect seeing her there, though it would be incredibly shocking. Both of them claimed to see the same thing, and all of the apparitions appeared as soon as the tour guide came back to the area. Very strange indeed. Number 5. Air raid warning. J. Bernard Hutton and Joachim Brandt were journalists visiting the Hamburg shipyard in 1932. It was by all accounts an uneventful day of photographs and interviews. Then, suddenly, bombs and gunfire fell from the sky. There were explosions, and the anti-air guns began to fire back with deafening booms. They took photos of the planes in the sky and the guns firing back as they escaped. And when they got back to the city, no one believed their story. They thought the photos would convince everyone, but once they were developed, there was no war zone to be seen. But 11 years later, on the same day they had visited, the British conducted Operation Gomorrah, a raid on the Hamburg airbase, and the photos from that look exactly like what the two men had described. Too bad the other pictures didn't develop so we could compare them. Did they see the war early? I guess we'll never know. Number 4. The MONTAUK Project. Preston Nichols writes in his book that at Montauk Air Force Base on Long Island, dangerous experiments involving time travel were being conducted, and that he uncovered repressed memories of the experiments in the 80s. His book later became the inspiration to Stranger Things, as he claims that young people with psychic abilities were experimented on and exploited to use their powers to open portals and gateways into different times, one of which being to 1943 on the USS Eldridge, where the Philadelphia experiment allegedly took place. The goal of that was to make their ships invisible, and apparently it worked, but the ship was also sent 10 minutes back in time and the crew went mad. The fact that these two projects linked together seems to show that there was something special about the two experiments. Perhaps time travel attracts more time travel like a magnet. Maybe they'll explain it in season 5 of Stranger Things. Number 3. The Man from Taured. In 1954, in Tokyo, Japan, a man was stopped while going through customs for missing something on his form. When he was being questioned, the immigration's officers looked at his passport and everything seemed to be on the up and up, except that the country of origin didn't exist. The man claimed to be from a country called Taured, and he had the passport stamps to prove it too. He said that it was between France and Spain, and he got increasingly more aggressive every time he was told it didn't exist. Why would somebody say that his home country didn't exist? When asked to point on a map to where his home country was, he pointed to what is now known as Andorra, but insisted that it was Taured. They locked him up overnight to continue questioning the next day, but when they went to look for him in the morning, he was nowhere to be found. Perhaps he managed to find a way back to his own timeline. Number 2. Andrew Carlson. In 2003, Andrew Carlson was arrested for insider trading. Over a 2-week period, he had turned $800 into $350 million. It is impossible to make that kind of money without having some sort of inside knowledge. He claimed it was because he was from the year 2256 and came back to make money. He made all sorts of predictions, not just ones for his investments. He also correctly predicted the exact date of the US-Iraq invasion. Soon after he was released on bail, he disappeared, never to be seen again. This one actually seems like something someone with a time machine would do: squander it on making money. Number 1. Victor Goddard. In 1935, Airman Victor Goddard was sent to inspect an abandoned airfield in Edinburgh. As he flew over, he noted its run-down, dilapidated state and that it was deserted. But on his way back, the weather changed drastically. There was heavy cloud cover and rain, but just as quickly as it came, it cleared again. And down on the airfield, he saw people in blue mechanic suits running around, working on yellow planes that he couldn't identify, and as a decorated airman, he knew his planes. It wasn't until 4 years later that he went back to the airfield to see people in blue mechanic suits working on the yellow planes he saw on the runway years before. Miles Magisters, which were not even manufactured until 1938.
In our number 10 spot, we have the woman on her cell phone. There is a painting by Ferdinand George Waldmüller from 1860 called The Expected One. This painting shows a woman walking through what appears to be a trail while holding an object which looks an awful lot like a cell phone. She also is seemingly transfixed by what she's looking at, similar to how people look at their cell phones when scrolling or sending a text today. People have looked at this painting and have perceived this woman as a possible time traveler, and hey, I see it. What else could that object be? What else could a woman of that time be holding? What could be as small as a cell phone and also something that she could be so focused on? I'm sure there are quite a few answers to this, but whatever. We are going to say that it's clearly a cell phone and she's clearly a time traveler. The end. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to smash that like button as it will really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have actor Rupert Grint. There is a Scottish painter by the name of Sir David Wilkie who lived in the 18th and 19th centuries and whom looked very similar to a very famous actor today. Fans of Rupert Grint, who played the infamous Ron Weasley in the Harry Potter franchise, were shocked to see a portrait of David and how he looks extremely similar to Rupert. Could it be possible that Rupert is really just a time traveler who has traveled to this time to capture our hearts and souls on the screen? A lot of people think so, as you cannot deny that the two look quite similar. However, personally I think this is one painting I disagree with, as I don't think they look enough alike for this to be the same person. I know that some people share a theory that time travelers change certain features on their face so that they're not recognizable, but something makes me think that this theory is a bit of a stretch and truly isn't the same person. I don't know. If we were to believe that time travelers exist, of course. And we do. In our number 8 spot, we have Keanu Reeves. Okay, if I could get on board with any celebrity being a time traveler, it would definitely be Keanu Reeves, because he is just magical. Do you agree? There's something about him that seemingly makes him likable to literally everyone on the planet. I truly wonder if there's anyone who dislikes him. So he is either magical or a time traveler, but that would also make him magical, so he's probably both. There is a very mysterious painting from the 1500s of a man that has a striking resemblance to Keanu Reeves. This painting has made its rounds online and has convinced a lot of people that he must be a time traveler. This is definitely one of the paintings on this list that truly feels like it could be real because of how similar Keanu looks to this man. The thing is though, Keanu seems to have a lot of people throughout history that looks like him, including King Charlemagne around 800 AD, as well as the 20th century French actor Paul Montauk. So it's because of all of these possible time traveler sightings that the internet is convinced that Keanu is immortal. And I'm here for it. I love him. In our number 7 spot, we have a man and his cell phone. Here we have yet another mysterious painting where this time a man is holding an object that is seemingly looking like a cell phone. I don't know. It looks like a cell phone. It seemingly is a cell phone. This is an oil painting made by a painter named Peter de Hooch from the year 1670. Some people have said that this man was a messenger and that it was a letter that holding not a phone, and that seems definitely more likely. However, this cell phone theory is way more fun. Imagine if people had cell phones in those days. They would have definitely been called witches, as this was around the time where the witch trials were taking place all around the world. So it's probably accurate to say that if he was holding a cell phone, he would have probably been more discreet about it, or maybe not. Perhaps he's a cheeky kind of guy and loves to play with fire. In any case, I personally think that it looks more like a phone that he's holding than a letter, so I'm gonna say this one is definitely a time traveler. In our number 6 spot, we have Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone has been trending online recently because people believe that he could be a potential time traveler. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because of a painting of a man called Pope Gregory IX approving the Vatican decretals. You have to admit, this guy looks like he is Sylvester Stallone. The resemblance is uncanny. If this is not Sylvester, then it has to be someone directly related to him by blood, right? That is the only conclusion. Okay, but in all seriousness, if this guy is not related to him and this is not him, then this is a very good example of how it is possible to have a twin somewhere else in the world. Possibly on a different time frame, but it is still possible that someone else could exist in the history of the world that looks just like you. Such a cool thought. In our number 5 spot, we have Nicolas Cage. Okay guys, here is another one. Man, this list is actually kind of blowing my mind. There are way too many paintings that look exactly like famous actors. This one looks like actor Nicolas Cage. I am a massive fan of the National Treasure movies, so I definitely have a sweet spot for good old Nicolas. But also, he encouraged Johnny Depp to become an actor, so bless you, Nick. You gave us a gift we cannot ever repay you for. Anyways, there is a painting of a Mexican emperor, Maximiliano of Habsburgo, I hope I didn't butcher that, and Sir Nick looks like his doppelganger. But let's be real, he probably is. The only thing is people seem to say that Nick looks like he's a lot of people from different time periods, so honestly, who knows? He does have a very mysterious quality to him, so perhaps that is why people are quick to think that he might be, you know, a time traveler. In our number 4 spot, we have Jack Gleeson. This is the only one on this list that is not a painting but just needed an honorable mention. Honestly, this was a hard list to research, so, you know, just love me. Jack Gleeson, one of the stars of Game of Thrones that played the infamous Joffrey, looks surprisingly a lot like a statue of the Roman Emperor Caligula. Almost identical. If you have watched Game of Thrones, then you would know that his character is the king for a while, and what a terrible king he was. Perhaps he had some practice from once being a Roman emperor. Some say yes. This statue is too much like him that he must be a time traveler. Either that or he's immortal and he's been alive since this time. In our number 3 spot, we have Michael Jackson. This is a really interesting one. People think that it's possible that Michael Jackson was a time traveler. Okay, if Michael Jackson was a time traveler, then maybe he isn't actually dead and he just traveled to another time. Michael is known for being someone who loved art, so it's possible that he even styled one of his looks based off of a painting that weirdly looks like him, but truly it is rather strange that this painting really looks like him. Perhaps he actually traveled back in time in a time machine and someone painted him and that is how this painting exists? Ooh, what if instead of being dead, he's trapped in the painting? like what happens in the movie The Witches, based on Roald Dahl's book. It's fun to imagine scenarios like this. Anyways, there's no denying the resemblance and the similarities in their fashion choices. Pretty strange. In our number 2 spot, we have Peter Dinklage. If you do not know who Peter Dinklage is, then I can only assume that you haven't viewed one of the greatest television series of all time, Game of Thrones. Oh, and also Elf. What a movie. Anyways, Peter is one of the most iconic stars from Game of Thrones, probably the fan favorite, besides Arya, Sansa, Jon Snow. Okay, never mind, there were too many great characters. There is a painting of a man that looks just like Peter though. The painting is called The Portrait of Sebastian de Mora by a man named Diego Velázquez. It was painted between 1644 to 1645. It truly looks just like Peter, so I understand why people look at this painting and immediately think it's him. Is everyone a time traveler in Hollywood? It feels like yes. In our number 1 spot, we have Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, the creator of Facebook, has definitely been called a robot, an alien, a shapeshifter, and now I'm learning that people believe him to be a possible time traveler, and it is because of a painting of the King of Spain, Philip IX. The painting was said to have been done in 1624 by a man named Diego Velázquez. I may be butchering his name, but hey, I tried. He looks like an awful lot like Mark. Some same droopy eyes, long face, hair color, nose, and also possibly hair texture. Kinda hard to make out, but it looks like it. The only thing is, the king appears to have bigger lips, but who knows, maybe the artist did that. Or perhaps Mark had a lip reduction. Anyways, not sure I'm on board with this theory fully, but the robot theory might have some solid arguments.